In the 25th year of our captivity, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was captured, on the very same day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he took me there. Verse 2. In the visions of God, he took me into the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain. On it toward the south was something like the structure of a city. Verse 3. He took me there, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze. He had a line of flax and a measuring rod in his hand, and he stood in the gateway. Verse 4. And the man said to me, Son of man, look with your eyes and hear with your ears, and fix your mind on everything I show you. For you were brought here so that I might show them to you. Declare to the house of Israel everything you see. Verse 5. Now there was a wall all around the outside of the temple. In the man's hand was a measuring rod, 6 cubits long, each being a cubit and a handbreadth, and he measured the width of the wall structure. 1 rod, and the height 1 rod. There go your 1 and 1 right there. Glory be to God. The eastern gateway of the temple. That's the title for this next section, starting at verse 6. Then he went to the gateway which faced east, and he went up its stairs and measured the threshold of the gateway, which was 1 rod wide, and the other threshold was 1 rod wide. Verse 7. Each gate chamber was 1 rod long and 1 rod wide. Between the gate chamber was a space of 5 cubits, and the threshold of the gateway by the vestibule of the inside gate was 1 rod. Verse 8. He also measured the vestibule of the inside gate, 1 rod. Verse 9. Then he measured the vestibule of the gateway, 8 cubits, and the gate post 2 cubits. The vestibule of the gate was on the inside. Verse 10. The eastern gateway were 3 gates, chambers on one side and 3 on the other. The 3 were all the same size. Also, the gate posts were of the same size on this side and that side. Verse 11. He measured the width of the entrance to the gateway, 10 cubits, and the length of the gate, 13 cubits. Verse 12. There was a space in front of the gate chambers on this side and 1 cubit on that side. The gate chambers were 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side. Verse 13, then he measured the gateway from the roof of one gate chamber to the roof of the other. The width was 25 cubits, as door faces door. Verse 14, he measured the gate posts 60 cubits high, and the court all around the gateway extended to the gate post. Verse 15, from the front of the entrance gate to the front of the vestibule of the inner gate was 50 cubits. Verse 16, there were beveled window frames, in the gate chambers and in their intervening archways, on the inside of the gateway all around, and likewise in the vestibules. There were windows all around on the inside, and on each gate post were palm trees. Of course. The outer court. Verse 17, then he brought me into the outer court, and there were chambers and a pavement made all around the court. 30 chambers faced the pavement. Verse 18, the pavement was by the side of the gateways, corresponding to the length of the gateways. This was the lower pavement. Then, verse 19, then he measured the width from the front of the lower gateway to the front of the inner court exterior, 100 cubits toward the east and the north. That was the outer court. Now, for the northern gateway. Verse 20, on the outer court was also a gateway facing north, and he measured its length and its width. Verse 21, its gate chambers, 3 on this side and 3 on that side. Its gate posts and its archways had the same measurements as the first gate. Its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Verse 22, its windows and those of its archways, and also its palm trees. I do apologize. I don't remember where I left off, but I'm just going to start at verse 22. Its windows and those of its archways, and also its palm trees. had the same measurements as the gateway facing east. It was ascended by 7 steps, and its archway was in front of it. Verse 23, a gate of the inner court was opposite the northern gateway, but as the eastern gateway, and he measured from gateway to gateway 100 cubits. Do you guys remember? I don't know why, but this just came to my mind. I remember watching this movie. I went to the movie theater to watch this, and this movie blew my mind. And it was, the name of this movie, ready? Stargate. If you've never seen this movie, I personally really don't recommend anybody to watch it. If you never saw it, I really don't recommend that you watch it. But if you have seen it and you remember it, that's good. But that's what's coming to my mind right now with all this talk about these gateways. So anyway, I would at least, if anything, just look up the description about the movie, like the explanation about like what's this movie about, but don't watch it. It's a great movie. It was mind blown at the time, but right now, you know, being in Christ and everything, I do not recommend anyone watching that movie. But I would recommend you read the summary of what the movie is all about. All right, so a gate, verse 23, a gate of the inner court was opposite the northern gateway, just as the eastern gateway, and he measured from gateway to gateway 100 cubits. All right, the southern gateway, verse 24, after that he brought me toward the south, and there a gateway was facing south, and he measured its gatepost and the archways according to these same measurements. Verse 25, there were windows in it, and in its archways all around like those windows. Its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Verse 26, 7 steps led up to it, and its archway was in front of them, and it had palm trees on its gateposts, one on this side and one on that side. In verse 27, there was also a gateway on the inner court facing south, and he measured from gateway to gateway toward the south 100 cubits. Now the next section is entitled Gateways of the Inner Court. Verse 28, then he brought me to the inner court through the southern gateway. He measured the southern gateway according to these same measurements. Verse 29, also its gate chambers, its gate posts, and its archways were according to these same measurements. There were windows in it and in its archways all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Verse 30, there were archways all around, 25 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. Verse 31, its archways faced the outer court. Palm trees were on its gateposts, and going up to it were 8 steps. Verse 32, and he brought me into the inner court facing east. He measured the gateway according to these same measurements. Verse 33. Also, its gate chambers, its gate posts, and its archways were according to these same measurements. And there were windows in it, and in its archways all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Verse 34. Its archways faced the outer court, and palm trees were on its gate posts on this side and on that side, and going up to it were 8 steps. Verse 35. Then he brought me to the north gateway and measured it according to these same measurements. Verse 36. Also, its gate chambers, its gate posts, and its archways. It had windows all around. Its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Verse 37. Its gate posts faced the outer court. Palm trees were in its gate posts on this side and on that side, and going up to it were 8 steps. Where sacrifices were prepared. Verse 38. There was a chamber and its entrance by the gatepost of the gateway, where they washed the burnt offering. Verse 39. In the vestibule of the gateway were 2 tables on this side and 2 tables on that side, on which to slay the burnt offering, in the sin offering and the trespass offering. Verse 40. At the outer side of the vestibule, all of the vestibule, as one goes up to the entrance of the northern gateway, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the vestibule of the gateway were 2 tables. Verse 41. 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables on that side. By the side of the gateway, 8 tables on which they slaughtered the sacrifices. Verse 42. There were also 4 tables of hewn stone for the burnt offering, 1 cubit and a half long, 1 cubit and a half wide, and 1 cubit high. On these they laid the instruments with which they slaughtered the burnt offering and the sacrifice. Verse 43. Inside were hooks, a handbreadth wide, fastened all around, and the flesh of the sacrifices was on the tables. Chambers for singers and priests. Verse 44. Outside the inner gate were the chambers for the singers in the inner court, one facing south at the side of the southern gateway, and the other facing north at the side of the southern gateway. Verse 45. Then he said to me, this chamber which faces south is for the priests who have charge of the temple. Verse 46. The chamber which faces north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok from the sons of Levi, who come near the Lord to minister to him. Dimensions of the inner court and vestibule. Verse 47. And he measured the court 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, 4 square. The altar was in front of the temple Verse 48, then he brought me to the vestibule of the temple and measured the doorposts of the vestibule. 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on that side, and the width of the gateway was 3 cubits on this side and 3 cubits on that side. Verse 49, the length of the vestibule was 20 cubits, and the width 11 cubits. And by the steps which led up to it, there were pillars by the doorposts, one on this side and another on that side. Okay, so that completes chapter 40. All right, there was a total of 49 verses. 49.